Jorma Vuoksenmaa, the British racing is finally back, and as things might be quite different after the COVID break, luckily we have had some examples from the Finnish and French racing already. So what's different now?
Yeah, it's very kind of long, complicated story, but the main title for this production is "There are layoffs and layoffs." I go more to the details, but the main point is that it is very important to find out if the horse had a break or layoff only because of COVID, or was the reason for the absence from race courses some kind of problem, or was it the original meaning to start the season first now in early June. I namely did a lot of research for the layoffs because, to be honest, I believe that that situation would be a very profitable special situation. I believed that the horses who have raced after the racing was restarted would have a huge edge over the horses who have been off since March or even a longer period of time from race courses. But to be honest, that was not case in France and especially in the French flat racing. Those horses who have had two races this season, they're not profitable in the second race of the season. Of course, the statistical samples are very, very low and narrow. And secondly, it seems to be the case in France that some very kind of, to be frank, limited horses probably tried to take advantage of that fitness factor, and they tried to have a preparation race and return to racing very fastly, but they're not good enough, and the betting action underlined that they were not very good horses. So I have lost trivial sums of money by betting returning horses in the French flat this spring, and they have not been good enough. But I think that if we go a bit deeper for the reasons for the absence of race course and for the trainer techniques and to the individual horses, certain profiles do better than some others. So we still at least have a small edge against the rest of the Colossus Bets pool bettors.
Okay, so basically I've always used as a rule of thumb that the horse who comes from a break should not be bet, but apparently it's not the break itself that's bad, it's the reason that leads to the break and makes the horse go to the break.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are these reasons, and
yeah,
how different can they be?
Partly you are 80% right. Horses, of course, in general are sharper when they have had a recent race, and it has been an universal idea in betting for decades and in all continents and in all racing codes flat jumps and trotting, that the horses with a fresh race has an advantage over the ones who have been off racing, because it's good for horses' muscles and blood circulation and mentality to have the race, right? But partly why the horses from the absence do badly or worse than the betting market expectations is that most of them carry some kind of risk that some kind of problems return, those same problems which in first place have caused them to have those freshening holidays or treatment breaks or absences, whatever you call it. You know, if the horse is a class stake horse and it has his or her prepared schedule winter break and is doing kind of, you know, scheduled training in order to have the top performance level in the summertime, then the big races are run. That break does not tell anything negative, and actually the horse might return to the racing next season in a pretty good shape. But on the other hand, if an old claiming horse, 10-year-old gelding, has a break for 8 months winter break, it might have I don't know the British word, but a very bad injury in hankosidevamma, as we say in Finland, that kind of injury which returns very easily, and which is very hard to repair. If the horse has that kind of break, in each race after its return, it has a big risk that the injury will kind of cause new problems already during the race. So when you bet that kind of horses, you kind of pay tax, you kind of bear a risk that that kind of the green zero in the roulette wheel hits. So to put it short, if you bet the horses from the layoffs who have had the layoff due to the injuries, you kind of give free money to your betting opponents by taking the risk that your horse will have a problem in the actual race, and you give them free money because your horse is not fit. But to take the discussion back to the June 2020 special situation, there are plenty of horses who are completely fit, and now they return against the fields which are mainly consisting on horses which have a layoff as well. There the layoffs are not that bad sign. We just have to do some extra work and find out what is the background of each horse's layoff.
And how can you do that? Where do you get the information from?
That's very kind of challenging in England and Ireland, because there the racing journalism is kind of it's different than here in Scandinavia. Here in Scandinavia, the racing papers have lots of trainer interviews, and they quite honestly tell even of the problems which the horses might have had and about for preparation, and they have pretty good guesses or forecasts how the horses perform when returning from the layoffs, and do we need kind of one preparation race, or are they expected to improve a lot? So here in Scandinavia, it's pretty easy to read about the reasons for the layoffs, and how horses are trained and how they have felt in the training. In Britain and Ireland, those interviews are not very kind of, you might find them that they are mostly behind the extra services which cost a lot, and they are not that common and accurate there. But on the other hand, in England and Ireland there are pretty good databases, and there you can have a look when it comes to older horses, what kind of history they have had with their layoffs. How often are they correlated with some kind of problems? How long are those absences? Do they look like normal fishing holidays, or do they look like random breaks, which might mean that the horse must have a holiday? 1980s I had a gelding called Trixpo, and he was a very good horse here in Finland, and he had a routine. He made 3 good races, then he got some kind of some of his problems. He got bit kind of, you know, extended after a couple of races. So then he took a 3-week break, and he was kind of got some treatment, and then he returned. He had that kind of routine, right? Some kind of horses are a bit like Trixpo. Some need longer holidays. Some can compete between 2 weeks, the full season. But you need to have a look on the horse's history. What has happened? Some databases even list the reason why the horse has been absent. Some racing medias have kind of interview archive, which are very useful, but it depends, you know, how much you are willing to spend time and money to find that background information for the layoffs, and then it's, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing to buy information from somewhere, or let somebody to make the probability estimates and handicapping for you. Or if you buy shares of Colossus Bet syndicates like made by Matt Bisogno, who has a brilliant database and who is a really good handicapper, or somebody else who works seriously for good syndicate bets and is willing to share the risk and profits with people who are working and dealing with him. So I mean, there are many ways. Racing is intellectually challenging thing, and it's good fun, and there are many ways to enjoy about racing and to take care of betting edges like this corona break thing. Before I forget, one very important thing about the layoffs. I did some experiments with my databases before we started to screen in this video, and it's one need to be very careful before drawing very kind of strong opinions out of the statistical samples, which I repeat are very little now, because this is such a special situation, the COVID-19 and the forced break for horse racing, and in Finland and France just a couple of weeks racing. So we should not make very strong statement, yes. But one thing I know already, without doing any, Z-score or Z-square statistical countings, I can see it from naked eye that the horses with a break over half a year do worse compared to the horses with just that 3 months long break, even in normal circumstances. And now, if you face tomorrow a race card in Britain with some horses returning from over half a year absence, I mean, we make an yearly return now, and some horses have raced in March and then have had a forced layoffs. Even in normal circumstances, the 3-month horses do better than half a year absentees or horses which not have raced in a year. But now the situation is even better for those 3-month horses, again a small sample, because some of them are completely fit. And one difference between trotting and flat racing is that the flat horses are easier to get into racing shape and condition than trotters, and so I expect the flat horses do slightly better directly from the absence compared to the trotters in Finland and France. And then, of course, if you study the trainer patterns truthfully, you might find some flat trainers who get their horses returned to the action almost in a normal shape. We don't have time to go through all those British flat trainers who are layoff specialists, but there are plenty of those statistics available in British racing databases and British media. So have a look there and then be critical with the sample sizes and do not overfit when you try to find out which trainers are good bets from the absence and which are not. And one more thing, it's kind of such a wide thing we are discussing about, but of course, use your brain and think about why was the absence and which kind of race we are talking about. It's a completely different story with maidens, claimers, handicap, stake horses, and it's very different with 2-year-old debutants, 3-year-olds returning, older horses making their handicap return. I know this might sound complicated, but you should kind of understand the overall picture and then make your decisions.
Yes, it sounds a bit complicated, but I've heard about an interesting shortcut to this. I've heard that if there are some break horses and their odds are going down before the start, there could be an indicator that they would be better than expected. Is there any truth behind that?
That's definitely true, especially in England and Ireland, because where the betting market is pretty effective and it's pretty strong. And then secondly, there is tradition since 1017 and 50, when the rich lords made huge bets on the race horses already. So there the market is more meaningful than here in Scandinavia, where we have totalizer markets, which are not always very kind of, big and healthy. So in Britain, you are right. If there is kind of, there might be even kind of planned breaks to prepare certain kind of horses to a betting coup. And then there are kind of, semi-prepared breaks that the horse is prepared to a very good return to the race courses after the COVID break or after the slight injury. And one more thing, a horse might have, if you have had problems with lungs and breathing or slight influenza, that is kind of, sorted out, and then it's not kind of that kind of extra risk factor which I described 10 minutes ago with the leg injuries. Right. So now if horse is prepared to a good return or has COVID break or have had some kind of minor injury or problem with breathing or influenza or whatever, then the connections might think that okay, now it's good timing to make some money legally and ethically from the betting. And of course, you can't get the betting money in without the market reacting if you bet in a serious scale. So in general, it's a very good indicator in England and Ireland if the horse's price goes down. But take care that you get your money in early enough. Already 1980s, when I started to be interested in British racing, I made a survey of so-called steamers, horses whose prices fell down sharply, i.e. who got a strong support in the betting markets. So if I remember right, back 30 years, I took horses from the cheap races, claiming races and sellers, and I took horses who opened over 10 to 1 and who were bet down under 5 to 1, if I remember right. And those horses were profitable if you backed them on the levels with 7 to 1 or something, where you already saw the trend that people or insiders are betting the horse. But the price did not collapse to those levels. They were probably, or according to my evidence, were already overbet. And the same is absolutely even more now true with the bet exchanges area. So monitor those prices sharp, or have somebody to monitor them to you, or use those bet angel or those robots, but bet early. The steamers are not good if the value is gone and they are already over. But actually in my survey I found out that the favorites were pretty good to bet against those steamers, because the favorites gained extra value than insiders and actually their followers went too far by smashing money on the hot horse. So the normal solid good favorite kind of went up, then the steamer went down, and by just making a boring bet on the favorite you got a good value. So that's kind of a strange automatical strategy, which I can't guarantee it's profitable, but it might give you value. One more thing, when we are talking about Colossus bets, which is my favorite market, even if I bet index bookmakers, tote pool combination bets and exchanges is that you can take that market information to your side in Colossus Bets by just simply ticking the box favorite in a competitive late race on the big six play spot or jackpot pool. Now when you pick the favorite, you let the insiders and market forces, which even in general are not that stupid, you get those market forces. Keynes would like this when the invisible hand in the betting market would guide you to the good value bets. So you get the favorite and the market information on your side by ticking the favorite box in the Colossus Bets late race. And actually, you can even, it's better to tick the favorite box in an obvious favorite instead of picking that horse name and 2-1 priced horse, because if something bad happens to the horse, it gets slightly injured during the afternoon before the race, or it's sweating or giving out a very bad paddock or warm-up image, then the market bets against it and it's no longer favorite, so you kind of get rid of the bad pre-race performing horse by ticking the favorite box, which you would not do if you isolated the horse with its race card number in the Colossus Bets Big Six play spot or jackpot. So that's another way of using the market information for your edge.
All right, so there has been different kind of breaks for different kind of horses, but what we know for sure is that the COVID break is finally, luckily, happily over. So we're looking forward to the upcoming races.
Yes, it will be interesting times, and I'll update these ideas and what we find out of our research and out of the experiences we get now in Finland, France, Britain and Ireland during this early beautiful summer. Thank you.